Hey everybody, Pete Corner here, the most famous Las Vegas oddsmaker you've never heard of. And today we're going to tackle the king of sports betting, football. Football is by far the most polarizing of the four main sports leagues due to a variety of reasons. First of all, football plays like an event than a regular season game. That's due to the fact that each team plays basically once a week. At the most, only two teams can play 20 games over the course of the season, and that doesn't give us any sort of legitimate database to refer to track trends that are meaningful or lend real credence to a betting or odds-making angle. Second, the build-up to the start of the game over the course of the week can swing the money back and forth depending on updated injury news to key players or weather conditions. Though we know that only a small fraction of the betting handle comes before the weekend, the lag time between opening a football number and the eventual kickoff, a lot can happen. The scoring system in football is very uneven, with chunky scoring coming in the forms of 3-point field goals, 6-point touchdowns, and with the extra point no longer a gimme, the numbers 3, 4, 6, 7, and 10 have always been key numbers in the psyche of bookmakers and gamblers. Not so much for us odds makers. We just make the line. We don't work it like the bookmakers and gamblers do. Football is the ultimate team sport. Its teams have the largest roster of players, creating depth to skill positions, which differentiates many of the worries we have with the remaining three sports who ride on the backs of one or two key players on the team. So when there's a key injury, of course outside the starting quarterback, we're not necessarily rushing to move the line because these other positions are tough to monetize, or the team talent lost can mostly be made up by others on the team at the same position. It'd be the start of a thought process to take advantage of a point spread, but maybe money is waiting to see if there's part of a cluster of injuries that could make bettors into thinking that there's an inherent advantage or disadvantage, but key players in football don't carry the same weight as other sports. Okay, let's start. As always, perception is the first thing out of the gate I consider in starting the process. Anyone who's been gambling on football for a while can pretty much estimate if a point spread between two teams is going to be small, let's say pick to 3, medium, 3.5 to 7, or large, 7 plus. The major difference between pro and college football point spreads is the accepted range of numbers we stay within. In the pros, we rarely see a spread above 17. So if we can size up a game in a few seconds that this is going to be a blowout, and we know the money's going to be there, we know bookmakers and gamblers get the willies if we set the number at 14 or higher and let it loose. 10 points is a lot to think about when it comes to the pros. In college, numbers can easily hit into the 40s, if not higher at times, particularly at the beginning of the season when a top Division I team plays one of those gimme games to get their records off to a good start. Next, health at the quarterback position is another extremely important factor, mostly because of the expectation of the player's output on the final score. The loss to injury will influence money in one direction or another if the quarterback can't play efficiently, and whether or not the backup can make up the loss for a key player. So we do have to monetize each player individually and also in the scenario in which they're playing in. And as we start to look into the numbers, recency is one of the most important factors in creating the spread. Looking back at data from years past makes little sense to incorporate into making a line for the next game. There's little to no effect on a team from a score from 3 years ago. I'd rather be making a call from 3 weeks ago. So recency plays a lot into my thinking. And here's a note. We know the betting public has a short memory, and they'll tend to remember just last week's game and not the team's relative potential to bounce back after a loss or vice versa. So it'll have an influence on how they bet next week. We're definitely conscious of that. When it comes to the point spread, the odd thing about odds making is that when we do our job to perfection, no one's happy. We make a spread of -3, the bookmaker books the game all week at -3, the gamblers bet the game at -3, and then the final score is the favorite winning by 3. Perfect! Yet the bookmakers and gamblers push, no one makes money, no one is happy, except we the odds makers receive no kudos for making such a great line. Imagine that! Let's get one thing straight. The point spread doesn't necessarily tell you who the better team is. It doesn't tell you who's going to win the game or by how much. It's a water level number that should entice equal money on both sides of the game. I can't stress enough the job we are doing is not the same as the gambler, and particularly the pundits you see on TV who get all of their information from AI-produced numbers and algorithms. Their opinions are mostly derived from statistics playing out on the field. I rarely use any performance statistic as a guide in making a point spread on a game. Do we look at them? Sure, but I'll generalize them by analyzing when a quarterback is passing for 400 plus yards per game and then the team is scoring 30 plus points a game in a stretch. Yeah, we see it. We know that's part of the equation, and we know that's the line will be adjusted. That's the nuance. The betting public will bet the hot teams or against the cold teams, but those statistics aren't my key go-tos. What do I look for? I want to know what's in the bookmaker's software. That's the set of numbers that I really want to see. The opening and closing lines and who the money was bet on or bet against. You won't find one single performance statistic in a bookmaker's software. It's just not tracked. That's for the rest of the world to talk about on TV, radio, streamers, and podcasters. Those numbers are never really part of the equation. Odds makers follow the money. Every game we research is situational. No two games are exactly alike, so line comparing can be a starting point, as we know that gamblers look at that angle, so we have to as well. Line comparing can get you reasonably close if all the conditions of the previous game are the same. That's health, weather, venue, meaningful game for one team or the other back then. There's a lot to consider when you use previous games as a yardstick, but it does give you a good start if we're talking about the game being in the same season or within 1 year where memories might pick up a chalkboard moment. Previously, I referred to the key numbers of 3, 4, 6, 7, and 10. Those are key numbers to the bookmakers and gamblers. Again, not so much for us odds makers. But statistics bear out that the underdogs have fared well against the lower numbers of 3, 4, and 6 in the past 5 years, while at 7 and 10, the spread record between dogs and chalk are about 50-50. So a tip for those of you who want to add a little bit of professional nuance, if your number for any game is on those lower 3 levels, use an adjusted money line to take a play away from those underdog hunters. For instance, -3 plus a dime, or -4 even, -6 plus 3 nickels. Make those players pay for the price and they may just back off. Okay, let's do a quick checklist of things to make a line. Have a 10-game log of both teams in front of you. Check for injuries. Now get a feel for how each team is currently playing. Check when they played last and check out what the line was. Now take a deeper dive. Look at the team's previous opening and closing lines. Are they betting with them? Are they betting against them? How about the totals? Are they betting up or down consistently? Finding any patterns? Make some adjustments. So, how to read the numbers. If favorite teams are winning and covering, the lines are too low. If favorite teams are winning and not covering, lines are too high. If underdogs are losing but covering, the lines are too high. If underdogs are losing and not covering, the lines are too low. What we want to see is uneven results. No streaks, good or bad. If there are streaks, you can bet someone is taking advantage of the lines. If the lines are choppy, it's much tougher for gamblers to find an edge. For bookmakers, there's nothing worse than a popular public team on a roll. Money comes down fast and hard no matter what line you provide for them. In those instances, just try to stay as high on the numbers as you can and let them figure it out. Now let's quickly turn to college football. College football is a different kind of beast. Where the NFL is mostly subjective, college football is mostly objective with a little nuance. What that means is we use power ratings to derive college football numbers, where we don't in the NFL. We're not talking about rankings, we're talking about ratings, a purely numerical account on deriving a point spread. Now in this micro class, I'm going to suggest the following to get you up to snuff as quickly as you can. When I first started out at Las Vegas Sports Consultants, we didn't have computers or extensive access to information. So we had to research every team from year to year and make adjustments to our previous year's logs and ratings. It was time consuming and not the most accurate at the beginning of each season. Today, there's a ton of information available to you and research is pretty much done already. I suggest you look at 3 ratings websites to start. The Sagarins, Massey Ratings, and Sunny Moore. Figure out each number from the 3 for each game you're researching and come up with a combined spread. You should start to chart each point spread for every team and put a power rating to each team, with say 100 being the best team, 40 being the worst team, and create your own rating scale, top to bottom. You'll be making big changes at the beginning of the year, as you'll probably have to make major adjustments with the actual opener and closing lines. It'll probably take about 3 or 4 weeks into the season before your numbers start to be efficient and you won't need the help of the other ratings. You'll have your own. Keep these logs from year to year to give you a good start to the following season. You'll also need to track totals, so a quick look at covers.com or vegasinsider.com at their game matchups to look at the previous totals will give you another good start. At this point, you just need to jump into the fire and start making the lines. And make them before anyone else, so your numbers are pure and unbiased. My company, the Sports Club, we came out with the overnight lines before anyone in the world. That's how we established credibility early on and became Nevada's only licensed company. There was only one other oddsmaker at the time, and he was a good friend and a very good oddsmaker that we worked with. But we came out first every day and first every football week.